on this 17th, Wednesday the 17th of January 2024. Thank you for tuning in. What is it about X? We all know it's 10. It equals to 10. But what's that all about? Because, I'm going to tell you guys, coincidental or whatever, I'm going to be talking about the number X this morning. And I remember back around the year 2000, I got interested in an author who was writing books on the ancient Sumerian civilization and the relevance of the number X to them. And he was a translator. His name was Zachariah Sitchin, and he wrote a number of books. One was called The 10th Planet. Or was it The 12th Planet? I can't remember now. Anyway, he wrote a number of books. He wrote a series of books. There must have been about a dozen of them, and I read most of them. They're very thick books, but they're not the kind of books that are fiction. They were in the nonfiction category, and they were all about this 10th planet. He postulated that there was a 10th planet on which that revolved around our sun in an elongated elliptical orbit and went way out into space in his postulation, and it would return every so many thousands of years and wreak havoc on the Earth. And he said that this planet, according to him, and according to what he read in the ancient Sumerian text, was inhabited. A very interesting theory it was. But why it brought it to mind this morning was all this stuff that's going on about X. And one of the obvious it smacks you right in the face is, I think it was Twitter. Elon Musk. He's calling his new company X. I mean, I don't go there. I'm not really much interested in that, but I just find it curious. But let's move on. Let's see about this X business. Now, here on CBS News, they're talking about Disease X. And world leaders are going to discuss the next pandemic. And, I was listening to this a little bit this morning. And I heard them talking about that the next pandemic is probably going to come from animals. Maybe it'll come from birds, the bird flu. And they kept talking about how it's going to make a transition so that it infects humans. Just exactly how is that going to happen? I'm just wondering, because we've been thousands of years, these animals have had these diseases, in the animal kingdom, and humans don't typically tend to catch some, these diseases. And how come now they're talking about suddenly these diseases making a transition? I'm not getting it. Disease X, anyway. This is what they're talking about. They're giving a warning that this Disease X, and they even sort of have an idea how deadly it's going to be. They were saying it's going to be 20 times as deadly as COVID. Well, can you imagine the pandemonium if this were to come true? This Disease X. If it were to come true, I can just imagine, how scary that would be. And they were saying on here, too, that it's probably some sort of a respiratory illness. And you all know how catchy those are. That's what COVID was. But 20 times more deadly? Interesting. Anyway, I'll just put it in my little box of information that I keep, that I sort through from time to time. Now, NATO is calling on politicians to prepare for a war era. NATO needs to transform, and the West must prepare for an era in which anything can happen at any time. In other words, what they're telling you is you can't feel safe and secure any longer, because your whole world might explode around you at any time, because war is going to break out, and we have missiles that can reach any place at any time, and you never know when one of these big missiles is going to rain in on top of your head. Basically what they're telling you. It says, we need a war-fighting transformation of NATO, Bauer says, opening the 2-day meeting of national defense ministers in Brussels. He noted that in the past, NATO governments and companies lived in an era when everything was plentiful, predictable, and controlled, very focused on efficiency. Yeah, that's what we lived through. But now they're saying we're going to live in an order, and he says we need to prepare because anything can happen at any time for an era which anything can happen. I prefer, don't you? Prefer a world that's stable. Basically, what they're telling you here is you're going to move into a world that's unstable in very short order. It says mindset change needed for a new era. Top NATO official military warns. To strengthen the common defense and support of Ukraine against the Russian invasion, there must be a whole societal approach. In other words, war. Now, moving on here, it says, countdown to conflict. Putin's step-by-step plan to bring the West to the brink of World War III, revealed in leaked intel documents, including the date of Day X. Day X? What's that all about? Day X. Day X. A leaked military report reveals what could be Vladimir Putin's step-by-step plan to bring the world west to the brink of World War III. You notice I say to the brink of World War III. Well, what's gonna stop it from going over the edge? You know, I mean, if your car's driving toward the bridges out, you know, they expect, and you're going 50 miles an hour, do you expect somehow the car's just going to stop on the edge? It ain't going to go over that edge. It's road to war here. Leaked document reveals Putin's possible plan. February 2024. Russia mobilizes another 200,000 men. Spring of 2024. Putin launches a new offensive in Ukraine to achieve victory by June. July of 2024. Russia begins a wave of cyber and hybrid attacks on the West. Sounds like that movie on Netflix where they didn't know what in the heck happened. They just woke up one morning, they're on vacation, you know, and they woke up one morning, their cell phones don't work, nothing, there's a huge cyber attack. The next thing you know, the nukes were falling in the movie. It's scary as hell, that movie. Have any of you guys seen it? It's on Netflix right now. It's called, what in the heck's it called? It was somehow connected to the Obamas, the movie. I don't know exactly how, whether... But it was called, what in the heck was the name of that movie? I can't remember it now. Something, leave your life behind, or leave your world behind, or something like that. Anyway, you guys are probably laughing at me right now why I can't remember the name of that movie. But it says here that in July of 2024, it was just this summer, Russia is going to begin, it says, Russia begins wave of cyber and hybrid attacks on the West. And then by September, Russia builds up another additional 50,000 troops in Belarus on the border with Poland and Lithuania. By October, Russian troops and missiles have moved into Kaliningrad. By December, Putin stirs up conflict and deadly riots in the Baltics. By March of 2025, more Russian troops are moved to the Baltics and Belarus. By May of 2025, NATO decides on credible deterrence. And then Day X comes along right here. NATO orders 300,000 soldiers to the eastern flank. That's Day X. Again, this X thing again. Now, we're going to talk about something else. We're done talking about X. We've had X's up to here. Now we're going to talk about the United Kingdom, England. They don't. You ever, all the time I've been alive, my whole life, England is, in the wintertime, it's dreary, it's gray, it's foggy. Foggy old England, they got that, but it's not ultra cold. Generally, it's above freezing, just barely, maybe 50 degrees or something, foggy. And in fact, the last time I went there, it was just absolutely typical. The last time I was in London, it was just foggy, dreary, damp, cool, but not cold. And that's typical, right? And but now, right now, they're gonna get like that's like 10 inches or 12 inches of snow. No, no, that's more, 20 centimeters. I think that's around a foot of snow. That's not normal. It says a wall of snow is sweeping in from the north as an Arctic blast causes temperatures to drop well below the average for this time of year. Well, you remember I've been doing shows on here, and I've been telling you guys that there's something called the AMOC. And there is the AMOC determines the weather for that small area on the Earth in around. It's very much determines the weather for that small area around. Uh, France, Italy, England, Germany, in around that area, right? It very much determines the weather, and the reason why is because of where they're at. Their weather shouldn't be like it is. It never should have been like it is. There's only one thing that keeps it like it is, and that's the warm air that comes up from that Atlantic current. So let's take a look at the AMOC here. This is what it does, and this is how it works. And it's always been there my whole life, but I've heard news that it's slowing down and stopping. I've heard news from the top scientists out there that the AMOC current is not functioning properly, and that it could actually stop. This is what I've heard. And in fact, they've known about this for a while, and that's why they produced the movie. I think it was called The Day After Tomorrow or something like that. Because when this AMOC stops, it leads. See, this is a system. It's like an air conditioning system. It takes this warm water and moves it up to the north, and it goes just offshore of those countries that stay warm all winter. It keeps them warm. But it also cools that. It takes it and cools the earth. It cools the air temperature of the earth. It's a natural thing and this is the reason why those countries aren't covered in ice year round. Because take a look at this map here. Now just kind of draw a sideways line in your mind across here, right? Now take a look at Maine, right here, Maine. Okay, now watch my cursor arrow as it comes across, It comes across sideways, and everything is like all these countries, Germany, Paris, France, London, Ireland, Netherlands, Belgium, Denmark, all of them are north of Maine, way north of Maine. Now me, right here, where I'm at right now, in Nova Scotia, I'm pretty much equal to Maine, and the weather shows it, You guys ever take a trip to Maine? Especially in the wintertime? You guys ever went up there in the wintertime? It's pretty bad winter, And in fact, because of latitude, they get the winter they're supposed to get. They're not. All the areas in the world are not affected by currents, and they don't rely upon ocean currents to stay warm. But if this ocean current stops, suddenly they're going to get the natural weather they should be getting. So what should they be getting if the AMOC stops? In places like the United Kingdom, in London, for instance, or in Berlin, because they're both about the same latitude. What's it going to be like? It's going to be like it is way up in the land where the Indians live. Not Indians, sorry. Where the Inuit live. Way up in northern Canada, what they call it. Was it north of 60 or something? Or is it north of 50? I can't remember now. But, way up where they get like permafrost, because way north of Maine, I mean, you could be in Maine, you could drive straight north up into Canada, and you'd have to drive like 1,500 miles straight north in Canada to reach the area that would be on the same latitude as, say, London or Berlin. Okay? So you guys starting to get the idea what's going to happen to them if the AMOC stops and it's not supplying them that warm water. And then there's another bad effect that comes from that too. Then the heat doesn't have any way of transferring itself from these southern latitudes to the north, and the cool in the north doesn't have any way of transferring itself back down to the south again, so that waters down here start to overheat. The waters to the north get too cold. And the scientists know that in a situation like that, you can get a massive polar vortex can form that feeds off of that hot and cold energy. And in fact, this is probably what caused the event that happened a number of thousand years ago that they just call an ice age, or a mini ice age. An ice age, they call it, when a big giant storm forms up here, and it just basically covers half of the North American continent. In other words, to escape this thing, you'd probably have to, if this storm, and I remember I used to have a book called The Coming Global Superstorm. It was written by Whitley Strieber and Art Bell. It's a very interesting book. It talked about this exact subject, and how a superstorm could form. Because we see these superstorms on other planets. Some of them sometimes are a common feature. They can last hundreds of years if whatever's feeding them continues to feed them. Most famous of these superstorms is the giant storm on Jupiter that makes the eye on Jupiter. Anyway, moving on. What's this I had on here? Globalist WEF's World Economic Forum complains X is a toxic, scary, Musk policies are problematic. Oh yeah, it's talking about that what do you call it? That what used to be, I guess, Twitter, is it? And it used to be known as Twitter. Now it's called X. Okay, moving on here. 2260 for silver today. There must be a place on here I can switch to gold. They used to have a button I could switch on this page. Switch over to gold from Kitco. So it's 2260 for silver today. Now, taking a look at cryptocurrency today, Bitcoin is at 42,267. So Bitcoin went just down a little bit. It was flat yesterday, now it's just dropped a little bit. Ethereum is at 25.28. And looking at XRP is at 56.7 cents. So now the Dow Jones Industrial Average is basically static. It hasn't moved today. And it's at 37,361. Taking a look at crude oil is at 71.78. It's down 62 cents on the day so far. Now let's take a look here at our bonds. We're looking at U.S. 10-year, 4.1%. It's up 3.4 basis points. And the U.S. 30 years at 4.3%. It's up a half a basis point, or 0.4 of 1 basis point. So the movement on the bonds is still going up. Oh, look what it says here. United Kingdom inflation has unexpectedly picked up. And I'm expecting the same thing to start happening here too. Look, dude, you just can't cut off shipping and stuff. And also there's one thing I want to point out here about inflation. there's supply side inflation. Well, there's two types of inflation. One, there's when the consumers are buying, and inflation comes because they're buying it off the shelves as fast as it gets there. They put it on the shelf and they're all sold out, so they have to raise the price because everybody's buying it as fast as it comes in. And then there's the other kind of inflation where it's on the opposite side, where the people who sell stuff saying, "Hey, let's raise the price up a little bit." It's not being driven so much by the consumer buying everything. It's being driven more by the pricing on the supply side. You know? So what we're dealing with right now is not so much the consumer buying everything. That's not so much what we're dealing with. What we're dealing with right now is the suppliers are the ones who are supplying the goods and services are still in this mode of raising prices, and they're not going to stop on that until the consumer's not buying anything. Then they'll say, "Oh, maybe we've went a little bit too far. We're raising prices on everything. Maybe we better drop prices a little bit." That's when things start to deflate. Consumers tapped out. So what we actually could see and what could drive the Fed to lower interest rates and stuff, because they're not making any loans and stuff, the banks are hauling their horns in, they're not giving people money like they used to, you know, and interest rates are higher, so if you do take out a loan, it's going to cost a lot more. And so everybody's getting tapped out right now, and it's all happening at once. Binga, banga, binga, everywhere, all at once. Everybody's the same thing. "Oh, I can't pay my credit card bill this month," and "Oh, I can't buy my this month," or whatever. "I got to cut back and tighten my belt." It's all happening all across North America, all simultaneously. So this price inflation, at a certain point when they're not selling stuff anymore, and people are, but this is, you got to understand that not selling stuff is only going to apply. We got to talk about needs and wants. Take the consumer out there. They have needs and they have wants. They got a lot of wants. "Oh, I want a new wristwatch this month," or "I want to buy this or buy that." But it's a want. They don't absolutely have to have it. And then there's the needs. They need to buy those eggs. They need to buy that bread. They need to pay their rent. Those are needs. So what's going to happen here when the consumer's tapped out is needs, the things you need, they're going to continue to buy, so they're going to continue to jack the price up on you. But the wants, all those items out there, like on Amazon and stuff, remember you used to send away on it. The consumers tapped out now. They just ain't going to be buying like it. It'll be a lot less deliveries. Those are the wants. And you watch. That's where the deflation's going to hit, in the wants. At the same time, we're going to have inflation in the needs. So we're going to have a differential here, or a splitting of the way of inflation. So it all depends on what they're analyzing. You know, how far across the board are they going with different products and different needs and different things to get analyze the final picture on inflation, because it's going to be a long time from now. It'll have to get awfully deep, the depression, before people are not going to be able to even buy food. So they're going to continue to buy food for quite a while because it's what they need. So I wanted to break that down for you guys between needs and wants, you know. Anyway, let's move on and finish up the show here with the dollar index at 103.65 and rising. Thank you guys for tuning in to my show. Remember, push that little button that says you like the show by pushing the thumbs up button. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode. And have a great afternoon. Bye-bye, guys.